All right, we are back for another edition of the Astro Weather. It's me. It's so liberating to take them off. It's great when I'm interviewing somebody, get that totally immersive environment. But when I'm not, it's really okay to not have them on my head because I feel like I can hear myself think without those things on my head. Anyway, how is everybody? I hope you're having a brilliant day, a brilliant start to your new day, or wherever you are. I hope that your day has been meaningful, that you've had connection. And if you didn't have connection, then you had something where disconnected, which is causing you to wonder why you're not feeling connected. And that's okay too, right? No judgment. But if we're going to have a cup half full or half empty, we're going to have a half full moment here, even though my cup is almost finished. Got a few more sips left of that Panamanian coffee that Miss Lynn sent my way. Got a new interview surfacing. Let me see if I can put the link up here for you guys, and I'll throw it into the chat. Pellegrino. I did a 2-hour interview with my good friend, Shauna Home. And let me see if I can get here we go. There it is. And it should be updated on Shauna's website. There we are. Tech issues fixed. All right. So this is a 2-hour interview that I did with Shauna Home on Monday. And I'll put this in the comments section here so you guys can have that link. First hour in Shauna's world is always free. And then the second hour is part of her paid Substack deal. And Shauna's great. She has lots of people that are very well informed. She's always at the cutting edge of things like health and law and psychedelics, medicine, right? She's always at the cutting edge of all that stuff. And I've known Shauna for going on, when did I first connect with Shauna? Probably around 2013. So, man, it's been a while. I've known her for about 12 years. And she was at the Eclipse event when we did our Eclipse event here in Texas. So she's great. Anyway, let me put this link up there so you guys can actually see the Substack, and hopefully it works. And in typical fashion, I'm going to have to remove that, and then we're going to have to do it all over again. Remove that. There we go. And one more time. Let's see. Stop. Hold on. Here we go. Share screen. And that's what it looks like. There's Shauna, the Mushrooms Apprentice. And yeah, it's a very intense conversation, but not one that you guys aren't aware of, because we have covered this material I wouldn't say ad nauseum, but we've been covering this material for a while. And uh, it just really, I mean, we could look at the actions of the last couple of days. And they really feed into this idea of introducing organized chaos into everyday life. So we have the Hegelian dialectic, which is problem, reaction, solution. And the solution now is more visible force. Okay. Just keep that in mind. It's more visible force. We talked about this weeks ago on a Sunday night show, and the 2 hours with Shauna is a follow up, and then there's more, right? There's like so much more that's happened since that Sunday night show. And I'll give you an example here. So I was having this conversation with my son, and he told me something really, really bizarre. They had, excuse me, they had a series of, how would I describe it? AI, AI, false alarms. So let me show this to you guys. This happened in Arkansas, where he lives. Spate of hoax calls about active shooters stir fear at college campuses around the U.S. So this was going on, right? This was Monday in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Michaela Morano scrambled for cover behind a green screen in the University of Arkansas broadcast room after she received a campus-wide alert about an active shooter. As officers outside donned bulletproof vests in search for an intruder, the 21-year-old journalism student called her grandmother, telling her, "As of right now, I'm safe. I love you." Monday's threat turned out to be part of a rash of hoax calls about active shooters on college campuses, some featuring gunshots sounding in the background that have sent waves of fear among students around the nation as the school year begins. Look at that. Look at that. There ain't nothing happening. No shooter, nothing. And yet, they send out the troops. Latest wave of swatting calls began in Pennsylvania, Tennessee. At Villanova, students were attending Thursday's orientation mass when law enforcement received multiple calls about a man opening fire on campus with an AR-15 style weapon. Sounds of gunfire could be heard in the background of the calls. Chairs banged together and bags dropped as students fled. Recalled Ryan Scanlon, who was in the 8th grade at a neighboring school when the mass shooting occurred at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Now Villanova senior, he joined others sheltering in the school library, waiting with little news for about an hour before police arrived. I mean, maybe it's just a coincidence that his junior high was. Now remember, listen to this. Listen to the language here. Hours earlier, Tennessee authorities received similar false calls reporting an active shooter with an AR-15 style rifle at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga and 4 persons shot. Dispatchers reported hearing multiple gunshots on the calls. Happened in South Carolina. So these are all pretty much red states, although Pennsylvania depends on where you go. So this is all happening, right? This is all happening in the last couple days. And nobody's really been talking about this. Experts fear hoaxes may make students dismiss warnings. Well, that's quite possible. Cry wolf enough, right? So we have these. Look, when I see stuff like that, it just feels really coordinated. Really coordinated. Like we are going to scare the bejesus out of people. We're going to do these SWAT calls all across the country. We're going to get police involved. We're going to ramp up the fear. And so in a very short period of time, and this is pretty much what I predicted, in a very short period of time, you have large numbers of law enforcement officers on the streets of America. Even if those incidents at those schools were fake, they were still out there. Like my kid was freaked out that this happened. He said there were dozens and dozens and dozens of cop cars and vans, and they brought out the heavy artillery, right? And that's just at his school. And there are these other schools where this has been happening. Oh, and by the way, we did have some kind of a strange shooting incident yesterday, which happened in, of all places, Minnesota. That's on top of all these weird false flaggy events, right? But then you also have the National Guard walking the streets of Washington, D.C. And, you know, somebody brought up that, well, at least they were there picking up trash. Well, isn't that how it starts, right? Isn't it like a slow creep? Oh, look, they're just picking up trash. They're you know, they're really just there to help serve the public. At least they're cleaning up the streets. That's where it starts, because they get your respect, right? They get your trust. Trash is a first chakra issue, right? Trash is a first chakra issue. When you're in an area where it's really cluttered and there's all kinds of trash around, and if you're walking down a street somewhere, do you really feel safe? No, you don't. You feel like you're living in a place where people don't give a shit about where they live, so they just dump shit everywhere, which means that you got to kind of be on guard a little bit. So when they go in and they start picking up the trash, what are they doing? They're gaining your trust. Hey, look at us. We can clean up your shit. Or we can clean up somebody else's shit. Because isn't that what the root chakra is about? Just shit. You remember when COVID broke and you couldn't get any toilet paper? Which meant that you were turned basically into an infant. Which is what that was about. It was the ritualized act of infantilization, because you couldn't take care of your shit because somebody else had gotten there before you and took care of the things that was supposed to take care of your shit. They got there first. And so COVID created this mass hysteria because it was the toilet paper. That was all planned. It's kind of the same thing in some ways with the National Guard. It's like, okay, you guys just need to be useful. Just pick up some trash, make the city look good. Let's gain some trust with these people. Those are the conversations they're having. And that's where it starts. So within a very brief period of time, we have ICE proliferating even more. We have the National Guard now being deployed in Washington, D.C., which Trump can do, by the way. And then we have all these weird prank calls with gunshots in the background, sounding very much like a coordinated event. And we're just getting started. But this is what the reason I'm talking about this is because it's one of the things that Shauna and I get into in those 2 hours. So I want to talk a little before we get into the weather. I want to talk a little bit about this shooting in Minnesota. When something like that happens, and I'm not picking up on it, at the beginning of the day, I kind of feel bad, actually. I kind of feel like I let you down a little bit. Like, couldn't I see this coming? I mean, I'm not really looking for it. Maybe that's the point of it. That I'm not really. It's like it just wasn't on my radar. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, couldn't you determine that somehow yesterday through the chart? I'd have to go back and look and see if there was, because if there was an astrologer that picked up that there would be a weird on the spectrum trans incel that was going to pop off an entire classroom at a Christian school in Minnesota, go find him. I'll have him on the show. That's a pretty obscure events, to be honest with you. And it brings up the question, right? When you look at an event like that through astrology, that maybe one of the reasons why it doesn't get picked up is because it isn't real. And I mean that in a number of different ways. I mean, we are entering into the golden age of AI and being able to produce a shooter, a manifesto, kids. I could create a school picture for you right now. Let me do this just to show you how easy it is to do. I'll show you. All right. This is about as close as I can get. Give me 1 second here. Let me see. He'll do this. Okay. All right. So I just did this. Those kids don't exist. They don't exist. I just put in a prompt. I wasn't very specific. This is where we are. Now, if I told you that those kids were real kids, would you have a hard time believing it? I'll tell you where the tell is. It's with the boy because he's wearing a skirt. And AI will do this every now and then. And so if you were doing quality control, you would say, he's got a skirt. That's not going to work. So you would render a different image. But other than that, you can see it right there. Right. Other than that, so we get these, and listen, and I'm not saying that something didn't happen. But with these images of these kids, and we get this weird, transmogrified shooter with all this very strange symbolism. It's like his gun is tattooed. One of the things that was, and everything on his gun is, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like if you were to go to a rally, like one of these No Kings rallies, and all the signs are fucking perfect. They're perfect. Like they're professionally done signs. That's what the gun looked like. It's like, oh, here. I mean, who knows? Maybe that individual, even the name of the individual, which I'll get into, is odd. But one of the, I guess you could call it a symbol on the gun is the number 6 million. What is that in reference to? That's in reference to the 6 million people that died in the Holocaust. We put a little asterisk next to the number, but nonetheless, that's what that refers to. 6 million. Well, why are they putting it on that gun? And what this reminds me in some ways of like the shooting in Tennessee, where the confused individual went back to the school that they grew up in or went to school at, and had some kind of, when you look at the sort of the historical record of these quote unquote shooters, it's like they've got a grudge. Theoretically, whoever they are, Adam Lanza had a grudge, right? At Sandy Hook, had a grudge. Jacob Cruz down at Marjorie Stoneman, theoretically, had a bit of a grudge. The dudes at Columbine had big grudges. So there's this weird justification of people going back to the places that theoretically made their lives a living hell. And in turn, they will do that to the people that did that to them. So it was kind of the same with Uvalde. This has a very Uvalde-like feel, by the way, this thing in Minnesota. But I was talking with somebody last night. I forget who it was. I think it might have been Joan. And I said, do you know what this is all about? This is all about Nick Fuentes. This shooting is all about Nick Fuentes. And it's not about him directly. It's trying to cast this individual, whether they were mentally ill and real and did this thing, or it's some kind of a weird psyop or hybrid. Again, we don't really know anymore. And in some ways, does it matter? Well, yeah, I guess if you lose a kid, clearly it matters. I don't want to downplay that. But at the end of the day, they're still going to garner the same result, excuse me, that they want from the event. And that result ultimately is to either begin to dismantle the public, although I don't really think they can fully do that at this point. They'd rather just let us all shoot each other. And that way they don't have to fire a shot. We'll take care of each other. So the more guns, the more bullets, the better. But it feels more like what they're trying to create is a virtual version of a groyper. And a groyper is a follower of Nick Fuentes. That's who Nick's peeps are, the groypers. And some of them are incels. Not all of them, by the way. But some are. Some have beef with women, right? Not all, but you'll get some of that in there. And really like pining for more traditional models of femininity. And so what they do is they created this character, or there's this character, this shooter. Even the name of the shooter is really, really weird. Let me see. So the name of the shooter is Robin Westman. Robin Westman. Let me show you. We're in Neptunian territory here. Okay. This is Neptunian territory. This is the deception. So this is Robin Westman.
We have provided many important safety messages in this manual and on your appliance. Always read and obey all.
Down. You have the Nike swoosh symbol. Do you know where that comes from? First of all, the symbol is Saturn. That's a ring of Saturn. The Nike motto, "Just do it," comes from Jonestown. But this is your shooter right here. Robin Westman. Okay. Let's just take a look at that name. So Robin Westman, or Robin, like robbing somebody, and Westman is the Western man. Robin Western man. Isn't that a weird kind of conjunction? And then, of course, there's the 6 million number on the shooter's gun. And you go into a name like that. And so what is Nick Fuentes essentially been saying for the last 8 years? And he's not the only one, by the way. But what has Nick Fuentes been saying for the last 8 years? Nick Fuentes has been saying, amongst other people as well, that there's been a war in the West and that they are literally robbing the West of the Western cultural traditions. Right? Like when you talk about like replacement theory and everything that goes along with it, somebody is gaining something, and that's generally the quote unquote new people. And somebody is actually losing something. Something is being robbed or taken from them. And so now you have Robin Westman. Now, I don't know if that's the incel name, the trans name, but what they're trying to do here is they're trying to create a virtual version of like a profile of the Grapers, of an incel movement, right? Where this incel movement hates women so much that they want to become women. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And I had this, to me, it's so like when you look at the gun and there's there's this movie called Koyaanisqatsi, which means life out of balance. Came out early 80s, probably 80, 81. Godfrey Reggio was the director. Philip Glass was the composer. And it is a Hopi word, Koyaanisqatsi, for life out of balance. And it's basically this horror film about what they're doing to the environment. And this is during the early, it's not an easy watch. But because Reggio is such a good director, the way that it's shot is stunning. It's this weird combination of the beautification of trash and excess because of how, and then you have, you know, that Philip Glass minimalistic, you know, soundtrack in the background, you know, propelling the whole thing, and it's, you know, it's a powerful movie. Now there was another one that came after it, sequel, Powahquatsi, which was a little more positive than Koyaanisqatsi. But Koyaanisqatsi is on the gun. Like, why the fuck would this person put Koyaanisqatsi on the gun? So what they're trying to do here, and this is the analogy that I used, it was like back in the day, they had the Monkees, the pop act, the Monkees. And they sat around, you know, Bert Sugarman, Bob Rafelson, Jack Nicholson, they all sat around and said, hey, let's get this Don Kirshner, let's get a band, let's create a band, make them look hip and hippie and young and cool, right? It'll be like a simulacra of a real rock band because they don't have to play, they don't have to write the songs. That can all be done for them. They can just perform them. And we'll create that. And we'll find these guys that look like what we think that the young people are looking for in a group. And it worked. It worked. And it worked mostly because the Monkees, on the one hand, didn't take themselves that seriously. They're like thinking, yeah, you know, we can get in the door here. This could be a good opportunity, you know, might lead to something else, right? But ultimately, I think Peter and Michael saw themselves as the most serious musicians in the group. Peter, was friends with Stephen Stills. That's how he got the gig. Michael was from Texas, and he had a real background in like hill country music. Peter was a child star in Hollywood. I forget he played. What was his name? The Elephant Boy. He was in a circus, like Corey the Elephant Boy or some shit like that. And he literally had a show for 2 years where he was this young guy who performed in the circus. That was Mickey Dolenz. And he could play a little bit. He was actually more of a guitar player, but he could play a little bit. Mickey's a Pisces. He's the only one left, March 8th. And so he taught himself the drums. But it wasn't like, I don't think Mickey ever saw himself as wanting to be like a super serious musician. He just wanted to hang out with the Beatles and take acid and get lost with Harry Nilsson for 3 or 4 days. And he, as a life goal, he was able to achieve that. But this is what they do with the monkeys. They create this band that is the group that they think that the kids want to see and listen to and follow. And guess what? They're completely right. The monkeys for 2 years, 3 years are rivaling the Beatles. In fact, they're so popular that the Beatles actually call for them. Come to London, hang out with us. And then, of course, the monkeys got a little too big for their britches. But this is what they're trying to do with this character. And what you're going to see, and you're already starting to see this, this is very, very, very much related in the sense of the gender confusion. Uvalde, the dude from Uvalde, Shaky Shaky, right? Who else? Nashville, Shaky Shaky. So what they're doing is they're trying to create this virtual version of the Groypers. That's what I think. Which is, again, similar to creating a fake rock band like the Monkees. It looks like the real thing, sort of, but it's not. And everything that you saw, or whatever happened in Minnesota is about Nick Fuentes. But it's not just Nick Fuentes. It's about people who are noticing and are like, we're fucking tired. We want our country back. We want America first. This kind of gets into Virgo territory, right? Virgo is about purity. It's about purity of intent. It's about all these things that, we generally held mostly sacred with things like lifestyle. If you went back, I don't know, 100 years prior to the discovery of DDT, which was pretty devastating, there was a general sense that people knew how to take care of their gardens, their bugs. They had folk remedies. They didn't need malathion, right? They didn't need Dow Chemical to help them garden. I don't know if they had a sacred sense of being connected to the plant world and everything that they were growing, whether it was out of the ground or the animals that they slaughtered, were part of a much more holistic process, or whether it was like, this is how we live. But I can tell you, people like the Quakers clearly have that attribute. And so we've lost touch with that. We've lost touch with that relationship with our everyday living and our food and what we put in our bodies. And that's why everything's gone fucking totally haywire, right? They've just had this free market economy with allowing, big agri and big pharma to collude, to work together and essentially poison us. So when we're in the month of Virgo, we're looking at those sorts of things. Purity, what we're putting in our body, where's it coming from? Why? It's like really, 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 really important. right? But it also goes beyond just the dietary part. It's like the purity of the country. Like what happened? Did you get into the purity of the world? And, was the world ever pure? Probably not. I mean, unless you're into the Eden story. But it's like, yeah, we're in Virgo territory. We're not Neptune and Pisces anymore, although we will be. It's coming back. And that's when the borders were wide open, right? So here we go. Virgo comes around. Virgo season comes around, and this is the first Virgo season since Neptune left Pisces. So we really have a clear opposition, very clear opposition, and the opposition is, hey man, the system's tainted, and we want the impurities and the free radicals. We want them expunged from the system. We want something back that's been taken from us. And this is a sentiment that I can feel growing. And what's really interesting is that and look, when I talk about Nick Fuentes, I think that there are things with Nick that can be potentially really problematic. So I am not like saying these things because I'm running the Nick Fuentes flag up the flagpole. I think he's important. I think he's interesting. And I think that he's doing things that are really, really dangerous. Dangerous in a way that people don't really understand yet. And I'm going to tell you why. Back in 1990, I went to an event at Evergreen College where a guy by the name of Bill Cooper was speaking. And I was working in this restaurant in Olympia, and I had a breakfast shift that day. So it must have been kind of around the holidays because I would do like breakfast shifts for banquets back then. And in the kitchen, the local AM radio, and there was this guy on there talking about the Iraq War, and he was talking about it in ways that I understood. I'm like, who the hell is this motherfucker? And turns out it's Bill Cooper. He's going to be at Evergreen College this weekend. I'm like, I'm going. I got to go see this guy. So we go there for a couple of days, and I got a first run copy of Behold a Pale Horse, which I think is a really weird book. It's not a great book. It's like this smorgasbord of like incomplete chunks that Bill doesn't do a very good job of piecing together. It's like he just threw the kitchen sink at this book. Anyway, but one of the things that Cooper, this was his dream, that he wanted to invest in low watt AM radio stations, like anywhere between 50 to 100 watts. And then the idea would be to buy as many of these low watt radio stations and then sort of hook them up like pearls on a string. And you could cover, I don't know, let's say 1,000 miles with 7 50-watt radio stations that were placed like kind of at specific intervals so that you could broadcast that signal at a fairly wide sort of spectrum. And if you took his material and the esoteric stuff and broke it down, then you could You could use that. It would be like an alternative media, right? What he was really doing is he was kind of getting into this idea of the internet before the internet was around. And I've been watching these videos of Fuentes on YouTube. Now, you can find these videos in total over on Rumble. But what I find interesting is that these videos are being reposted by people, right? And you can, there's kind of a style to the reposting. So you have the Fuentes video, maybe 25, 30 minutes. They're not much longer than that. And then there's a person who is replaying that video, and you will see that person. And you'll see them in the bottom left, usually, sometimes in the bottom right. But Big Nick talking, there's the person. Every now and then, the person will stop the video and give a little commentary. One of the things that I noticed about the people that were reposting these videos on YouTube is that they were incredibly eclectic. You had young black guys, young black gals reposting Nick Fuentes. Like, wow, really? So this guy is a racist, a fascist, a Nazi, and you have these young people who you would think would be offended by what he's talking. They're reposting his material. You know, I saw, he really came down hard on JD Vance the other day. And there's this Indian guy reposting his material. And he's agreeing with him about JD Vance and how JD Vance fucked up by marrying an Indian woman. And this guy's actually agreeing with him, and he's Indian. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, now this is a phenomenon. And it is, in a lot of ways, it's like what Bill Cooper prophesied. But instead of 50-watt radio stations, you have all these kind of repeater channels on YouTube that these people are putting up to spread this message. And I think it's just utterly fascinating from a demographic perspective, because let's go back here. And this, again, if we want to keep this astrological, and I certainly can, right? So this is what they're portraying Groypers to be. And I can tell you, this is not the group that is responding to what's being talked about. So in this regard, it's a complete disconnect, total illusion. This is like, again, the creating the monkeys instead of, and the monkeys are very successful. Don't get me wrong, I like the monkeys, but there's only one monkeys. You can only catch lightning in a bottle generally one time. So they have a problem here. And the problem is that they're trying to stereotype this individual. Well, this is what a Groyper is going to look like. And they're going to be white, and they're going to go after Christians. And if he was truly disturbed and really wanted to cause some mayhem, he would have gone into a synagogue and he would have shot up a bunch of young Jewish students. Now that would have caused a real stir, but in order for that to happen, you'd have to have somebody really invested in that so that they could get absolutely maximum coverage. out of some you would that would be kind of the last resort thing. And I don't know, who knows? Maybe you'd have to sacrifice. The whole idea of sacrifice in Old Testament religions don't seem too far fetched, do they? Anyway, we have Pluto and Aquarius. And when you look at these people, these young people that are repeating these Fuentes videos, they don't look very white or male or pissed off to me. Now, some of them, there's this one guy on there, he's Jewish. He's got an American flag. He interprets scripture. He's Jewish. And he's repeating Nick fucking Fuentes, okay? They got a problem here. Because the demographic, Pluto, remember, Pluto and Aquarius, right? Where does Gen Z have Uranus in Aquarius? Where does most of Gen Z have? Most of Gen Z has Uranus in Aquarius. Not all, but most. All of Gen Z has Neptune in Aquarius. And they all have Pluto and Sag. And so what you're seeing here is an Aquarian effect. It is not an Aryan effect, although there's nothing wrong with that. It's an Aquarian. They have a problem on their hands. And they want to create this dark underbelly of angry, young, pissed off white males who are so pissed off at women that they want to become them. And they're so pissed off at their schooling and their and the Catholicism it was like a Catholic school too. I mean, isn't that literally a shot in some ways at people like Candace Owens or Nick Fuentes or E. Michael Jones, who are Catholic? And whether they're deeply Catholic, like E. Michael Jones is deeply Catholic, or they're newly minted Catholic, like Candace Owens, it's still a Catholic thing. So there's that too. The whole thing is weird. It's weird, right? And it doesn't fit. And they're going to have a problem with it. And it's Pluto in Aquarius, because it is going to absolutely and utterly confound people. Like, this is going to blow Jonathan Greenblatt's head right off of his shoulders. They're going to have to respin this whole thing, that it's not just about angry, pissed off young white men. They're going to have to respin this to include all these other people, all these other variations of this movement. And it's fascinating to watch. From this perspective, it's fascinating to watch. And just like, and Nick Fuentes can be very indelicate when it comes to talking about blacks and about race mixing in general. And these people don't care. The repeaters don't care. What they care about is the truth. What they care about is the commentary around Gaza, or, where Fuentes is hitting the third rail. And again, I don't fully trust Nick Fuentes. It doesn't really matter. What does matter, though, is that astrologically, it is having this effect that confounds stereotype. You understand what I'm saying? It confounds stereotype. And when you confound stereotype, it gets very difficult to create situations where you put people literally in a box. and say, this is who you are, this is what you do, this is how you're going to react. And and look, you could take something like Palantir. They're taking all this data, right? And they're taking in all this data, and I guarantee you they're paying attention to the young black guy who's sitting there repeating Nick Fuentes' Rumble videos on YouTube. They're taking that data in. And what does that do to their model? It completely fucks up their model. Like, how do they deal? And so for me, right, again, this is like the strange bedfellows territory, where you have people with Pluto and Aquarius who might see each other crossing the street and have kind of a stereotypical view of who that person is. And the next thing you know, you're talking to them, and 5 minutes into the conversation, you're talking about Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson or Dan Bilzerian, but it's all around sort of the uncovering of this illusion. And it's like, wow, I didn't think that person had that or could connect with that in that way. And so that's the shit that's going to blow the minds of these supercomputers. They're just not going to be able to figure it out. I'm telling you. And this is really one of the aces that we have up our sleeves here, is the fact that we are unpredictable. If I had said to you, let's say you had a working knowledge of Nick Fuentes, and I had said to you a year ago that Nick Fuentes would become influential in the lives of young black people, would you be able to like compute that? Given whatever basic knowledge you would have of Nick Fuentes? The answer to that is no. Because based on everything that he's ever said, it would point you, to Honky Town. But it doesn't. And this is the beautiful thing about us, right? That we are unpredictable. We're unpredictable. Just when you think, so they think they've nailed it. Oh, we've got it. We've nailed them. We've nailed them. And next thing you know, something pops up. Boom. Right? Like, what the fuck? I'll give you another example of this. And some of you may not really like it, but I have to bring it up nonetheless. Maureen Callahan has been, so there's this new, I guess, HBO or Netflix documentary on JFK Jr. And there are so many people, and dear company, duly acknowledged, that believe that JFK Jr. is an essential part of the Q mythos. Okay. And he's been gone long enough so that he's occupied this sort of mythic space in people's brains. I remember this woman on Twitter had this, it starts with JFK and it ends with JFK Jr. And there's a profile of Trump, and there's a profile of JFK, profile of Trump, profile of RFK, and there's a Q thing. And so this whole JFK Jr. mythos has become deeply embedded in Q. For the last 2 weeks, Maureen Callahan has been an absolute axe murderer to JFK Jr. She wrote books about him. She lived in New York. She knew people that knew him. Their paths would cross. And the way that she talked about him is not very flattering, right? It is not very flattering. And unless they pulled him out of his near-do-well ways and have been schooling him for how long has he been gone now? Since the 90s? You wouldn't want that guy back. He wasn't very bright. He lived the life of being completely catered to. But this is what I'm talking about now, right? It's sort of like the Q people would detest Maureen Callahan, but she is actually telling the truth based on the anecdotal evidence, stories, everything that's that he did, right? Even the plane that he flew, and people would talk to him and tell him, "Hey, why are you flying a plane? Like, this is not your DNA, dude." And apparently his plane was not the safest plane in the world. Anyway, I'm bringing it up for a reason. And it's the same, like these ideas of who people should be, could be, would be, are. If that's who they're supposed to be, they will stand up and they will stand the test of time and they will walk through the fire of the time that we're in and they will be untouched. But if they're not, and they're supposed to be somebody else, or they're portraying themselves to be something that they're not, they will be. They will be found out. They will be incinerated, or they will be shown to be something very, very different. So it's another Pluto and Aquarius thing, right? It's just breaking a different illusion. So getting back to yesterday, could we have predicted whatever happened? Maybe Mars and Libra, squaring Jupiter, Cancer, maybe. We might be able to fit that into the program. The Venus-Pluto opposition, the Widowmaker. Yeah, but that's usually one-on-one relationship. Now, Venus is in Leo, so children are involved, quite possibly. That wasn't on my radar, right? It's like, oh, we got school now. That's right, I forgot. I would have talked about school at some point, but I guess school's back in. And we have a T-square with today, Venus, Moon, Pluto. That'll be interesting. What will the moon, like, they've erased all this guy's social media shit. Whatever this person, who knows who this person is? Robin the Western Man. But with the moon in Scorpio, you would think that this would be one of those days where, oh, look at this. Look what was hiding under this rock. Not out of the line of questioning or the line of fire for that matter. So today is one of those days, Moon in Scorpio. People are not satisfied with superficiality. There's a rejection today of superficiality. The sun is sextiling the moon exactly. And the sun in Virgo is detail oriented, right? And it wants to cut out clutter. That's what Virgo does. And the sextile of that moon in Scorpio is like, let's go deeper here. What's really, really, really hiding beneath this rock? Turn a rock over today. Seriously. If you're out in nature, turn a rock over today. See what you find. Because if you don't turn it over in the natural world, I guarantee you'll be turning rocks over in other parts of your life as well. Today is a very intense day for your relationship to things. We got this moon Venus square, this moon Pluto square, and there's a lot stirring underneath the surface. Like, what do I really need in my life? What do I really need? If I had to get rid of 90% of my material, could I live? There was a period of my life where I lived like that. I could do it. Could I do it now at this age? Maybe. Depends on where I was doing it, right? But this is one of those days. And if you're not going there, somebody will force you to go there. Who's dealing with mothers that are ill? Today'll be a dilly. It'll be a dilly. Moon, Pluto square, moon, Venus square. Get out the lawyers. Get out the legal guardian stuff. Today's an intense day. If you're dealing with a parent that is on the edge of terminus, today's one of those brass tacks days. What do you keep? What do you let go of? How long? So, when the water gets deep, put on your flippers and your air tanks and go for a dive. Today's a dive day. It's also related to your own. The money stuff is going to get weird. I just have this feeling, and it's going to start with the price of things. I was driving down the road yesterday, and HEB's almost always it's kind of the standard bearer for gas in town, and it's been around $2.69 for the last couple of months. It's up to $2.99 yesterday. That's a summer price. Now, here in Texas, people don't travel as much because summer's so hot. Want to get the hell out of here. So maybe they jack it up during the fall. It's not a pattern I've seen. But this is another byproduct of this T-square. Money, right? Things are getting tight. We're being priced out of our own existence here. And I'm not saying that you can't have moments of prosperity, and certainly you can. Clearly, there are people in this world that still do, usually at the cost of others, but they still do it. So this is another thing today. You look at where I got to do it. I got a lot of extra funds, things that I got to shut down, subscriptions. Like if you look at all this shit that you have subscribed to, and you've forgotten about it, you're probably into about $250 worth of subscriptions a month that are just getting soaked out of your account. Take a look at those today. Take a look. Today's a really, really good day to make difficult choices around what to keep and what not to keep. Sun and Virgo will help you out tremendously. Be open to new connections, new people, new ways of communicating and seeing it. Have fun. I mean, I know today's been a little heavy, but get out there, have some fun, do something a little bit different. I like this Venus sextile to Uranus. If I was feeling a little more chipper, I'd go line dancing tonight. I don't even line dance, but I would, because of this Venus sextile. Step out, do something different. Pretend you're on Love Connection. Okay. I think that's about it for that part of the show. Let's bring in our star of the day. It's so funny. You know what I've noticed? This is just a demographic notice here. Now that I'm only doing this for now, like the numbers during the show are higher because I'm able to stay on longer. So this is actually, like, it's tough shutting down 15 minutes of flame. It will return, by the way, but it has made this show more robust, which I hope you can appreciate. All right, True Hemp Science. You know the old drill here. I'm going to take my secret True Hemp Science elixir. This is my secret one. This is the I'm out. I'm out. Oh well. Oh. Just enough. True Hemp Science is, without a doubt, one of the best places you can go and get CBD. And not just any CBD. This is CBD that has been sprinkled with magic, because Chris is an alchemist. And he's been quoted as being an alchemist more than once by more than one person. So if you get multiple people talking about him being an alchemist, it must be true. So if you go to truehempscience.com, spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS, and you will get more CBD products with your order. It's like the Whitman sampler. And that helps me as well, since they're a sponsor of the show. So 15MINS, that's your code. $150 gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right. David Soul. Funny, I've been on a bit of a Starsky and Hutch bender, and it's such a shitty show. Like, I could only watch 3 or 4 episodes. It was so bad. I mean, really bad. The writing's horrible. Now, the characters are pretty well etched out. Of the 2 actors, clearly David Soul is the much better actor than Paul Michael Glaser. Paul Michael Glaser is more of a character. But David Soul is a serious actor. He got the gig for Starsky and Hutch because he was in the follow-up to Dirty Harry, Magnum Force. And he basically played a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, vengeful Aryan cop, a white knight who took the law into his own hands, amongst other white knights, including Robert Urich and Tim, what's his name, from Animal House. And so Dirty Harry actually had to deal with guys in the force who were more deadly and dirtier than he was. And David Soul played one of them. That helped him land the role of Starsky and Hutch. Now, I've always said that Cancer is the most soulful sign. He's a Cancer rising. And his last name is Soul. Now, that is not his birth name. His birth name is Solberg, Solberg, and he comes from a line, I believe, of Lutheran ministers. So David Solberg comes from kind of a religious, ministerial. But when you're at a church, you perform. When you are a priest, you're performing a service. You're playing a role. Of course, there's singing in churches and all the things that go along. And he got that training, right? So that's what he comes from. That's his background. And what's interesting is that he also has the moon right there on his ascendant. Look at that. Right? But his moon is in Leo. If I'm not mistaken. No, it's in Cancer. So he's got the moon in Cancer. He's got Pluto at, let's see, right there, beginning of Leo. His moon is in Leo. My bad. So yeah, it's all here. And that's his Virgo sun. So I got a little twisted there. This is all Leo. But he has the moon in the first house. And he has Cancer rising. And there's an intensity. Like when you watch those Starsky and Hutch episodes, he has an intensity about him that in certain scenes, he doesn't have to say anything. And he knows it, right? Like as an actor, he knows it. He doesn't have to say a lot. He's able to embody and emote that intensity. Of all the pieces of Starsky and Hutch, I like the Huggy Bear character because he's a caricature. But David's soul at certain times in the show is really good. And it's usually when he doesn't say anything. Right? He's got a presence about him. The show only lasts 4 seasons. And he's got a few other things that he does. But eventually winds up moving to England. But he's got this intensity, right? He's got Jupiter here. Like the guy's a performer. That's what he came here to do. True node in Leo, Jupiter in Leo. He's a performer. He's also a singer. He has that hit from the 70s, Don't Give Up on Me, Baby. That was a huge hit. Huge hit. And he really winds up occupying the second house. One of the things he does is he moves to England because he's kind of more into like stage, and he was on TV shows in England. Like he was employable in England. He probably had a better career post Starsky and Hutch in England. I think he lived on a boat or something on one of the river, like the Thames. But he's also very well known for his singing, which is very second house, right? With Taurus there. He's got that Sun Chiron conjunction. So I think him actually singing was probably a major deal. I wonder what happened to him around the age of 4. I'm not sure I want to know. But one of the things about him is that no matter how successful he was, he would never fit in because he has Saturn in the 12th house. And it's not a death sentence, but every now and then with Saturn, you got to take a time out, right? You got to go occupy that 12th house. You got to spend time with your soul. It's the house of the soul. Now, he was also a major, major smoker, right? Huge smoker. So when you have a Mercury-Saturn square, one of the first things you learn as an astrologer is you're going through all the iterations. Well, what about this with Mercury? What about when you get to the Mercury-Saturn square, smoking, big no-no. Big no-no. That's the lungs. And he has Mercury in Libra, so he needs a mellifluous voice. He lost a lung. He was a 3-pack-a-day smoker, and he stopped 10 years before he passed away. You can see it. You can totally see it with that Mercury-Saturn square. He's got Venus in Virgo. this makes it hard on marriage. Right here. So he's got that square with Uranus. He's got Aquarius in the 7th house. He's married 6 times. Why would anybody want to be married 6 fucking times? I don't get it. I don't understand it. Right? Maybe he was just crying out for that Capricornian solidity. But what he was really getting was these, Aquarian relationships. This is a guy who wanted both security and freedom. His Venus is retrograde. And it feels to me like he would go into marriages and relationships with the best of intentions, but it wouldn't go well. It wouldn't go well. Venus in the 3rd house, like, relationships are very fraternal. It's like you're like marrying your sister or your brother or something. I mean, it has some interesting qualities, like you have a lot to talk about together. But I it's one of those aspects, like if somebody has like a composite chart and their composite Venus is in the 3rd house, I'm like, you sure you want to be married to your brother? It's not the end of the world, but it also defines the relationship in a very different sense. So I think that's a very difficult part for this guy and his life and his chart. And he's restless. He's got a Mars-Uranus conjunction in the 11th house. And he's got a Sun-Mars square. And you could tell that he probably rebelled against his upbringing and went to Hollywood and did the David Soul show, whatever, right? He doesn't have any water except for his ascendant. Is that interesting? Well, the moon in the 1st house counts for something. And he's got a bundle chart, pretty much, right? It's all about David. His identity, his emotions, how he feels, right? His ability to ground and to find things in life that are creative. His relationship with his siblings. It's interesting because he was on a show, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, which is very fraternal, right? So he was on this show. It was on ABC for a couple of years. And the main narrative is that there were these brothers. They lived in Oregon and they were loggers. And they brought these women in to be their wives. And what's interesting is that, again, this is the whole fraternal thing. He winds up marrying the sister of one of the actors on the show. So his Venus literally becomes fraternal. He marries Bobby Sherman's sister. And Bobby Sherman was on the show. 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. Venus at 17 degrees in the 3rd house. You see, life imitates art or astrology or something like that. I feel like this guy, and I'm sure he was happy. Like, I'm sure he was happy living in England and doing stage stuff and, I don't know, reciting Dickens or being in an English TV show or selling crisps. I mean, maybe he really liked that. But I feel like, and maybe it's these squares, right? Maybe it's that Neptune square to Saturn. Or maybe it's that Sun Uranus square, Sun Mars square, the self-destruction. He could have been bigger. This guy from Starsky and Hutch to the singing stuff, he could have been bigger. And I think it's also Saturn that he kind of turned his back. There's stuff in his closet. it's this Chiron Sun conjunction that happens between the age of 3 and 5. Who knows? I'm not even sure I want to know. But I should do his chart relocated for London, because that's really where he's like. Once he was done with Starsky and Hutch, he was born in 1943. Starsky and Hutch ends with 1979. He's probably in England by about 1983. He lived half of his life in England. He died at the age of 80. Probably went to England when he was around 40, 41. So he spent half of his life in England. Anyway, there's your True Hemp Science star of the day, the one and only David Hutchinson, also known as David Soul. Is it David or is it Ken? His name Ken? Anyway, he was Hutchinson, and they called him Hutch for short. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, right? William Ramsey. He'll be the guest tomorrow. And we'll be talking about the Manchurian Candidate. And I hope we can kind of work this. Like, William's got a whole thing. He's got a presentation. But I kind of hope we can work this shooter thing into our talk tomorrow. I think it'd be really interesting. All right. Thanks for being here. If you like the show, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. And mods, thank you for your help, as always. And take care of yourselves. Treat each other well. God bless. Love you all. Bye for now.